All right, 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Any public comment? No public comment. All right, item 4, Planning Commission member terms. The terms, I don't have that sheet of paper in front of me, but the terms,
I got them.
okay.
Yours up there.
Otherwise I can do.
My term, Terry's term, and Adam's term are up this month. Dan is April 26th, so is Rob and Christy. Angie and James are April 27th. So, I will stay on. Terry has decided he is not going to stay on, and I didn't give Adam a choice. So.
And if you did, I would choose to stay on.
Good answer. Thank you. Is there any questions on that? Terry has chose to not re-up or sign up, and we have.
I had asked you to ask
Yep.
Terry if he'd stay, and Terry elected not to. So I have asked Patty Yeague to come on board, and with the board's blessing, which I will ask for next Wednesday, then she should be coming on board if the rest of the board is okay with it.
Okay, and then she will do her swear-in.
She'll do
In
her
the May-
swearing at the next meeting.
The May Plan Commission meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make
That was my question, if it had to be done at the annual meeting or here. So we'll plan on that on the May.
It can be either one, whichever you would prefer, but she's going to be here
She's
anyway.
gonna be here
so-
for the May
And I'll
meeting.
make sure Paulette is here.
Okay, so can we put that as one of the first items on the May
Yep.
agenda?
I have a question, then does that affect my alternative status?
No? No,
Okay,
you're still the alternate, but you have as many rights as everybody else. I mean, we ask you to be in attendance at every
Right.
meeting. The only time that you don't have a vote is when we don't have enough people. Is that right?
I believe so.
Good
yes.
statement, yeah.
I think you
so,
said that backwards. He has a vote when somebody is absent.
Right.
Otherwise,
Right.
alternate-
so tonight I'd have a
I said
vote,
when there's not enough people.
but
Yes.
when you have another member, I would not.
Correct.
Okay,
We still want your opinion though.
Yes, it's just the vote.
yeah, I just want to understand where I'm at here.
All right,
Before we move on from this, Josh, just to have the minutes, is Terry then, is this meeting one he is not in attendance at because his term is up, or is he excused absence for tonight's minutes, or?
I was under the impression that he was going to be here,
Okay.
but I haven't checked my emails to see if he was.
Okay.
Have you heard from Terry?
No.
And then honestly, before we move on, I just think it's important to thank Terry for his time serving in this role and in addition to all his years in service to the town. So I'll make sure the minutes reflect that.
Yes, and I actually have that as down as my information and announcements too. So we'll go over that.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, that's all right. Thanks for reminding me. All right. Moving on, we have March 12th meeting minutes.
I just have a question on the meeting minutes, and I'm not sure if this is the time to bring it up and ask about it or not. Under item number 7, which was the motion on the
Ozahuski's survey map.
yes, the survey map. The motion was pending confirmation by the zoning administrator that there was no specifically stated conflict with our zoning regarding the manufactured home district. What was found out about that?
It's a moot point. It was dropped at the county level because what he did when he combined the two parcels, he combined the parcel tax bill. He did not combine the physical parcels of land. So it's a moot point. It was dropped right after. The next day, I got a call from Emily from Will County Planning and Zoning. So it's a moot point. It'll never go to the board.
So when you say drop, so it is then split, it's just staying the way it was?
It's staying as two parcels the way it initially was. It was
Okay.
never joined as one. He
Okay.
came in to have them separated, but it's a moot point because they were never joined.
Okay,
I don't know if you know that you can go to, if you have, like that situation where you have two lots adjoining each other, you can go to the county treasurer's office and have them put it under one tax bill.
And that's what.
And that's what had happened there.
Okay,
So we didn't know that. It looked like it was a combined lot,
okay,
like with a CSM or something like that.
okay. Did we get clarification on that mobile home issue though, Lorelei? Did you look it up so we know for future reference?
No, I discontinued the
Oh,
mobile
shebang.
home issue.
Yeah, we were looking at the mobile home district in regards to the wording of the zoning regarding the mobile home district, and nobody seemed to know what it was last meeting, and so we were pending, this motion was pending finding that out.
No, I did not. I did
Okay.
not pursue that at all.
Yeah, we had,
Because there's no sense of doing the research on that mobile home park if it was a moot point. I would
Well,
have to go back.
no,
to the
I
beginning.
understand
Yeah.
that, but if it comes up again, we're still not gonna have an answer.
But if it came up for this park, I would do the research and go back. But it has to be each individual park to see what each individual.
Yep, no, I understand,
Okay.
but there was just, we were
Yeah.
specifically talking about the district, not the park. That's where the
Which
back and
that's what
forth
that was,
was.
just a
Okay.
district, that
District.
wasn't considered a park.
Correct, and so that's where nobody seemed to have clarification on what our wording is in our zoning or whatever about the district itself.
You guys are going through the zoning still today, right?
Yeah.
So you can always make an adjustment to clarify that, and make it in our zoning.
Well, that's it, we couldn't find it, so
But-
that's why we did the motion that way last meeting, so. Either way, it's not for the minutes, I just didn't know if this is where I needed to bring that up and make sure that it was addressed.
all right, I'll entertain a motion for the March 12th minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Dan to approve the March 12th minutes,
And I'll second the motion.
second by Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Can I expand a moment on the last meeting? Chrissy, you had asked me something too. You had asked me a question about the building.
Oh,
the- Yeah,
Yep.
square footage for
Oh,
Safe
yeah,
Haven.
and it's a mute point again, because after talking to the Red Cross and the DNR and emergency management, emergency government, they all agree that if we want to use it for that purpose, we can. There's no regulatory,
Square footage per population.
yeah, there's no even regulation that we have to. It's just that we volunteered as a community to do that, and we will continue to do that.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure.
all right, item number 6, certified survey map for Dustin Hanneman, 6130 Mill Avenue, parcel 1800-249A. No, they meet our minimum acreage. They both have the frontage and 75-foot of access, as Lorelei stated in her report.
Looks like based on the map, all the existing structures are gonna exist on lot 1 of this new proposed map, and this lot 2 is essentially just a separate vacant lot then? That's what it looks like, I mean.
That's
unless
what it looks
somebody's-
like, yes. Rob, you brought something up earlier.
Yeah, I noticed, I gotta find that map now. I noticed that we have on our zoning map, the Xed off area here,
That means there's high waters concerns, yes?
floodplain, and it
Yep.
says it's natural resources preservation and floodplain.
Yep,
And then in our ordinance says it referred that zoning to Wood County Ordinance 12.3.1.
but we supersede that because we have our own zoning now, and we have zoned it
Rural
Rural.
residential.
rural residential.
Okay,
And that's the underlying district that you'll see.
okay, so that that's just as a reference that that's a floodplain, so.
Yes,
okay.
so it keeps us aware that, like for building and code systems and that type of thing, that keeps us cognitive of that being an issue there.
And the county would also be aware
The
of
county is
that
more
because-
aware of that than
okay.
we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good catch, Rob. I learned something. I learned something. I learned don't.
It's wet out that area, right?
All right, looks like it meets everything that we needed to meet, so I would entertain a motion to recommend approval of the board.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Christie,
I'll second it.
second by James. All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed?
Can I ask a procedural question now?
Yeah.
Being that James is the alternate, can you still make motions?
Terry's
Yes,
going.
Oh, because Terry's
Terry's
gone.
gone.
Thank
Yep.
you. I just wasn't sure if all were here, is that,
If there was somebody here, then I probably couldn't.
okay. Just wanted to make sure, I kind of forgot Terry was gone.
I think he can do everything.
I
It's
think you
just
can make, you
can't
can make a
vote.
motion in second, I just don't
Yeah,
know
he just
that,
can't vote.
you just can't vote.
That's good to know. I don't
Yeah.
know, so I just wanted to make sure we were all
Yep, yeah.
doing the right
Understand it.
thing.
Right? All right, that motion passes. Item number 7, town building updates.
You want me to speak now?
Yes, if you would.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I met with Keller because it was a snowstorm day and a lot of people didn't make it, and it was during the day. So our next meeting will be at night, and you all should be aware of the time and date. Josh?
Did I say that in the email? I don't believe I did. I think
Okay.
I was waiting until today.
Okay. So we are going to have a meeting, and I will get you the time and date
I
here.
have May 1st at 5:30.
Thank you.
I believe I have that in my calendar as well.
Okay. Thank you. So, they did look at the town hall, and they did feel that that would be an excellent place for the cold storage, putting the overhead doors on the gable ends and just making it a complete drive-through, taking out the electrical and the plumbing because it's on the inside of the block wall. And if we ever have something go wrong with it, it'll compromise the block wall. And they would run electrical just for the lighting and the few outlets that would be needed in conduit along the inside wall. They would tear out the existing ceiling, disconnect the furnaces, but leave them in place because we don't want to put holes in the roof if we don't have to. Just leaving them there is fine. They're not good anyway. We just received a settlement from the insurance company for 3 of them. Well, actually for all of them for hail damage, but 3 of them are currently working, but we don't know how long they will continue to work. But anyway, so, and they're removing the floor, and the floor probably has asbestos in it. They are testing it to see if it does, but most likely it does, just based on the age. So they'd have to take out the tile. They would also remove the stage area, the concrete there, to make it more of a drive-through. So that will cost, but we think it's a win-win, keeping that hall and utilizing that hall, because the longevity of the hall is better than the longevity of the of the building that they're currently using. So the second part of that was that if we tear down where the existing Public Works is, why not put the new Public Works building there? And just back it up a little bit to keep it off the road, give them more frontage, and bring it towards the parking lot to try to save the parking lot. And in saying anything about the parking lot, so it's not a concern as much, when I met with Invenergy, who is our new solar distributor, they need to be vested in the community, and we don't have enough nonprofits in our community to them to feel comfortable as being vested. So they want to know the needs of our municipality, and we said, you know, we're contemplating these buildings, would you be interested in maybe helping with the parking lot? And they heard it. So I don't know what their answer will be, but I thought that would be a great tie-in. At this time, they're coming back and keeping the administrative building with the addition of the offices and the new hall separate from the public works, keeping the public works over that way. If in the future there are additional needs for more buildings, it's easier to add on to them. For insurance purposes, it keeps our insurance rates a little lower based on the use of the buildings. So this is what they're gonna come back with next time. And then that will be May 1st at 5:30. In the meantime, I am doing a little background work. I'm meeting with the financial, Wood County Finance is what it's called, their department, because they will give me a more detailed breakdown of how, if we reinvest the funds from the solar back into our infrastructure, it'll keep our mill rate down. And this is what they told me, but I don't understand the technical part of it. So I am meeting with the finance department to figure that out and to be more schooled on that. And then I'll bring that back to you. I think that's about all I know about the buildings, but the next meeting is May 1st at 5:30. And we did that because you guys had asked. Hopefully you can make it. I think that's all I got on that. Josh,
Okay.
if there's any questions I can
yeah.
answer.
If you have any questions, I think most of us here were at that meeting. So.
I got a couple questions.
Sure, I'll try to answer.
I did mention it to a couple residents, not just that they had voted, and I asked them, you know, what they thought of the municipal building. And I kind of was mentioning that we might be making some changes to it, and they got pretty curious as to why we needed to be making changes. So I guess that would be my first concern is how is a resident gonna understand this? I don't know. I looked through everything that Keller, that email that he sent us. Thank you, Adam, for sending that to us. I didn't see any cost breakdown of anything to update that building, to see what it would cost to fix the roof, to put some heating and air conditioning units in it, and the minor remodeling we might have to do to the bathrooms, not the big remodel to where we would have to knock walls out and stuff like that. But to keep the building, we don't have any, at least I don't have any numbers that would be able to share with the residents as to, okay, this is what it's gonna cost to fix this building up versus here's our other plan B. So I don't know where that is, but I myself as a resident, I would like to know what that would be, what it would cost to.
And that's a fair statement.
I just, before we move forward into changing it to cold storage and building on a different hall to vote in and all of this, I think the residents are gonna wanna know what's wrong with this and how much is it gonna cost to fix it.
That's very fair, and that's
because-
exactly why we hired Keller, to tell us exactly what we got and what we can do and where we are. Because to me, this is the optimum time. If we're gonna do something, do it now while we don't have that money spent that we're getting from solar. If we have to do something with the buildings, let's do it now. Whether it is fix it up, repair it, get things in line. We know Public Works is shot. I mean, we've all been there, we've all seen out the walls. I mean, we know that. But is there something that we need to do to the other buildings? All of them. And that's why we hired Keller, because nobody here, none of us have that kind of expertise, and Keller does. We have paid them to tell us what things are gonna cost to either be fixed up or replaced, and then it's gonna be up to us to decide if that's what we need to do. So that's about all I can tell you, Rob.
Okay.
I know previous boards have entertained this numerous times, and it was never looked at because of the cost to the citizens. I'm sure millions of dollars, to raise taxes That's a horrible thing to do here in Saratoga. We're a very small town, but when we have money coming in that we have not earmarked, thank you. I was looking for that word. We have not earmarked it for anything. If we need something that we know we're gonna need in the next few years, I would like it to be earmarked for that. If we can get away with spending less and fixing buildings, I'm all for that too, but I don't have that expertise myself, and none of us do, and none of us wanna put ourselves on the line and say, I think, because it shouldn't be that way. It should be, get a professional in here, have them look at the buildings and have the engineers go through it and samples taken, tell us what it's gonna cost. And that's what they're
Can I
doing.
say something as well? This whole process, I don't know if I misunderstood a little bit about what Keller was doing. When they came in the first time, or it was presented to us the first time, it was with all these different ways a town could be laid out with the public works. And in some communities, the public works also served as their voting hub. You moved out their trucks, and that was also their community area for the voting hub. My understanding when we paid for them was that they were going to bring us ideas. And that didn't happen, as far as my personal opinion.
Okay.
They came with, this should be tore down, and here's an option, and maybe if this is too big, we'll downscale a little bit. And then we had the meeting with him last month and said, no, we want to look at saving the hall and doing cold storage or something different. And now we got that coming back. I do think, regardless, it's going to be a hard sell to the community for a large ticket item. And as a member of the planning committee that is supposed to be looking at this, we brought it up last month that the meetings are during the day. Most of us can't come. I feel that I haven't been able to supply any input to this whole process, and we're already kind of leaning toward a design, and we haven't even talked about other ones. We talked about in the past the hall, and it's a town hall, opening it up for our town residents to be able to use.
Right.
And now we're calling it the what do they call it in the thing? The voting area. So are we automatically saying we're not going to have that open to the town people again?
That is correct.
See, but who just decided that?
The town decided that approximately 5 years ago.
For the hall we have now.
Right.
So is that something we
What's
as
going to change?
please let me finish.
Sure.
I'm just saying that these are conversations that before we decide we're building a whole nother area that could support a town meeting, that we should be talking about what is that purpose of that room going to be? Are we going to be allowing the town to rent it like they used to in the olden days? And yes, I understand there was an issue for a long time with things being broken and cleaning issues, and the kitchen, definitely was out of sorts and no longer able to be used. But those are all conversations we haven't even had yet or discussed as a team. What's that?
You haven't attended the meetings.
Right,
Granted,
because
they were
they're
at
during
one,
the day when I'm working, and we've asked for them to be later in the day.
you asked last month, and that's what we're providing now.
I asked before that as well.
I did not recall that, but however, the meetings are now going to be held at 5:30, and I guess in response to that, Christy, just because you weren't there doesn't mean the questions weren't asked. There were other people from the community there, Dan, Josh, Carl, Chase. There were a lot of people there, and a lot of the questions were asked, but
But I
you're
guess
right,
they're not
we
being
didn't.
communicated.
Right.
Then.
So that's why we're having it at 5:30, and I hope you do bring your questions forward.
Absolutely will be there with questions.
I hope so. That would be great. But a lot of the questions have been answered that you're asking, so you can present them to Keller and get your answers at that point in time. But one thing I would like to bring up, Keller is only hired to give us ideas. They're not hired to say yes or no. They're hired to give us ideas of what we can potentially do. And it's going to be up to us to make that decision, to move forward or not, or to do something or not anything. So, yeah, I hope you all can attend at 5:30 May 1st meeting.
And,
The more people there, the better.
right, and I would like to add that there hasn't been a decision on the design at all.
Oh, I
They just been-
realize that.
They brought us one idea and then they're like, well, that was like way bigger than what we want. It's like, no, we kinda wanna use what we have if we can, so then they brought us another design. They're just kinda, we're checking all our options right now. And
Well,
we
you
might, we might decide that none of that works, you know?
Is the information that from those meetings when they brought the first design and the second design, like, those weren't shared? I mean, I don't have any access to what that first design was that they brought. The only one I know is the one they have here. Can we please have those documents and papers so we can see what they presented even?
Do we, I don't know.
Well,
I
thought it
kept-
was
I
gonna-
kept
I
the
thought they
ones-
were gonna be in with the email, but they weren't.
Well,
Well,
they brought like 6 copies of everything that they had, and then we looked at them, and I don't know if we all kept all of them. I kept a few of them.
I wasn't at the first meeting, so.
Okay,
don't
I
know.
kept,
Yeah, everything's right here.
yeah, I got like,
That'd be
If-
awesome if we could
yeah, I
scan
mean-
them and get everybody a copy so we know what has been looked at and discussed, because I feel like some of us are in the dark.
yeah, like I
We're
say,
told kind of like, well, this is what we talked about, this is what they said, but we haven't seen anything except for what he gave us last meeting, and that we had to get forwarded to us.
okay, when they come, if they don't bring, I'll ask them to bring everything that they had brought us at previous meetings, because I know I have scattered, things, because I've thrown things out because I don't want to get them mixed up.
Yep.
Because there were things that we threw out because, oh, this won't work for a certain reason or another reason. But, I have quite a bit, but I'll ask them to bring everything from previous meetings and they can,
I would appreciate that, because I would like
Yeah.
to see the
Yeah.
sequence of where
Right,
we
the-
were to
Sure.
where we are now.
sure, that's fair.
Terry, you had some-
I come in late, I'm sorry about that, but when Rob was speaking, I didn't hear it all, but I agree with you that we need to know, what is it gonna cost us to fix this building? I could have put you guys and said, well, we can do this, and I can build this building and this and that. That's what I got out of this so far. That we can just build this and we can do this, but we haven't got any figures on what would it cost us to fix this building. That makes a big difference,
Yes, it does.
you know?
Yep.
Well, we
Yeah.
have to have that for the residents. Because
Well,
that's the first
absolutely.
question they're gonna ask. They're
I-
gonna hold us. I don't wanna be sitting in front of a group for a public meeting without all these numbers.
Yeah.
And ideas, everything.
They
that we
did
do.
go over that some 2 meetings
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
and
But then why wasn't
But
it shared
it
with
was
us?
pretty vague. It was pretty vague. It
It was the
wasn't,
last
okay,
planning
the,
commission, we did
okay,
share
the
some.
roof.
That's okay.
but I
I'll
mean,
just have them bring it up.
but they didn't come with an exact figure. But basically, if you do much of anything at all to that building, then you get into having to make it all ADA compliant.
Right.
And so you're not talking about small remodel to the bathroom and this and that. If you get into that, you're tearing out walls at that point,
Well,
because you have to make it ADA compliant.
But you gotta make the
We-
new one ADA compliant,
we-
so it doesn't matter. I've been into this business for
No,
30,
I understand,
40,
but-
50 years, and I know what's going on.
But we discussed.
Everybody says, well, we gotta do this with the bathrooms.
We
you
don't
know
have
what?
to, from what I understood.
$15,000 you can do the bathroom. All you need is a unisex bathroom in that building, unless you're gonna go with, leave it with voting and all that stuff.
I'll just have them bring in all the previous paperwork. That should
Yeah.
be good. Then everybody will be up to speed. It might take a little longer meeting, but that's okay, because then you'll find out everything you need to know. That's good.
You have to look at this from Keller's point of view too. This is the process. You go to build a new house, husband and wife don't agree, same thing. There's gonna be a million questions. You're right, you want all the figures. Somebody's gonna want one thing, somebody's gonna want something else. You nail it down and
So if we're not using that building for voting, I guess my question is, what's the thought to use that for?
Why wouldn't we use it for voting? Why wouldn't we? If we had an itemized cost of the roof, to fix the roof and put the heating in, and we don't have to go through a large scale remodeling. I believe that he did mention that, him and the Rob, that we could stay away from the ADA bathrooms. We can still use it for a voting area. And I think that's what the residents are gonna wanna know. Why aren't we using that? Everybody that walked through there the other day, I'm pretty sure didn't have any complaints. They didn't have any water running on their heads, and
Sure.
the bathrooms worked, and
That's fair.
they're gonna have it's gonna be, those people who are gonna make the decision. They're also gonna question how, how did we come up with what all we need for square footage is and all of this. I know there was a wants and needs list presented. I don't think I've ever seen that list. It was maybe at the first meeting,
I
I don't
actually
know,
do
and
have
presented to Keller's. I question, I've got, and then here's another question. And some of this stuff I think we should weed out before we visit with Keller again so that we aren't discussing a lot of this. We can sort through a lot of this, but I drove around the other day and I didn't see any equipment sitting outside whatsoever. All the doors were closed and all the equipment was inside. And I see the list for the truck shop was for 6 bays and a wash bay. And I know we're getting one new truck, but I think we're selling one, or are we keeping the other one, or whatever?
We haven't determined that.
Okay, so
There's
everything's,
differing opinions on the board what to do with that.
so everything, even if we keep it, so everything's under a roof now. And I'm looking at this as a resident. Everything's under a roof now. And now we've got this, we're gonna spend X amount of dollars on a 6-bay building plus all the amenities that it takes. That's gonna be a hard sell to the public. Everybody wants more room.
Absolutely.
Do we need 6 bays or would 3 be?
That's a good question.
Would 3 be? I see the largest piece of equipment was 34 feet long, but our building's 50 feet wide. So that leaves 16 feet, 8 feet in the front and back, which is okay, but that's the largest piece of equipment. That's a lot of room in front of a.
These are really good questions, Rob, and I know they've been asked, but I don't know the answers. But I think these are questions you can ask Keller, because they're the ones who gave us the answers. And realistically, you're not going to believe us because our memories are individual memories. So when Keller comes, I hope you guys do ask these questions, but they are the ones to ask. And I do have.
But Keller is using our information. That's
Yes.
how they come up with that.
And so then.
So I'm
you're-
asking, how did we come up with 6 bays instead of only 3 bays and a wash bay, or for all the equipment that we have right now? Because it's just what a resident's gonna say when they see that, what Dan has there, and they're looking at it and they're gonna go, we got all this cold storage lined up out here, the buildings that we're gonna turn into cold storage, but everything's under a roof now, so now we're gonna add 6 more bays plus a wash bay.
Well, I can't say everything is under a roof or is not, because that's not my area of expertise, but I had Caston, Tom, Josh, Dan, and Chase, and Doug Pasano's opinions combined, and I think they all agreed. And I can't say that I did because I don't know. I don't know the equipment that we have, and I don't know how big it
It's
is.
listed in the Keller, the sizes of the equipment and everything.
Okay, so then you do know.
I do know that, but I'm
Okay.
just curious as to how we got to that point,
And the 3 snowplows are outside right now, I believe.
the blades.
Well, if I remember right, the very first meeting, he came up with a plan, the architect sat right there. And he said this was a rough design. He didn't know if it was too big
Yeah.
or too small.
Yeah,
or-
that's what he said, and
So-
he's still saying it.
Right, he's gonna
Yeah.
say that because we're not telling him, this is how many square feet we have.
Right.
Which, should we be doing that though? Should we be
He-
grinding this out to where we should say,
That's what I'm
we need,
When we're
we
ready
need
to
100
build.
by 300
Yeah.
period, and that's what we need, instead of having them keep giving us ideas, but I'm just trying to get a grasp on how this is all
But
working, because
but
right
that's
now.
not what we're hiring for, to tell us what we need. We want, not to tell us how size of the building we need, because we don't even know if we need a building yet. We hired them to determine how good our buildings are, and if we do need a building, then it's gonna be up to us to decide how big it's going to be. That's my determination. That's what I think
And
we
you have
hired
to
Keller
answer
for.
Christie's questions first. She's asking, should we fix this building or shouldn't we?
Yeah,
That question's gotta be answered before you go to the next
Right.
step.
And not a vague. We're going to need more than a vague statement of it would cost an awful lot of money, and where you're flirting with the whether or
Right.
not that's good dollars after bad. Everybody understands that concept. Nobody wants to spend $500,000 on that building to get 10 more years of life out of it. That would be foolish, right? That's bad planning. Just like building a brand new building with only 3 bays if that's what we need right now, and 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, we need 4 or 5, then we were bad planners. So we need to be careful, we need to consider, but we need facts to make these decisions, and we need to, I think we all need to be generally thinking about this from that fact-based perspective, and then we can decide, hey, what we have, what would it cost to make what we have work, and how long will that give us, versus what will it cost to build new to fill our needs and our growth needs, and how long will that give us? Those are, I mean, and just a simple statement of, well, it's, you know, it's reaching the end of its useful life, and we don't necessarily advise you stick money into that. Well, we need to know what that money, what that amount is to make the right decision for
When
the
you
town.
start pushing Keller, sooner or later, they're gonna hit the end of the money we are paying them. You know, there's a limit to what they're gonna do for the money that we pay them.
We have to have answers though.
Yeah.
I mean, we hired them to give us answers,
Mhm.
and that's
Well,
what we need.
And my thing, the more I looked at his presentation, I mean, yes, I understood everything he was saying when he was here, but the more I looked at his presentation and I paged through it so I could answer more questions for myself about where did this, you know, come up with, how did this plan, it's a whole lot of pretty words that say a whole lot of nothing. It's just a list of different things that they would have in a room. I mean, there's
Well, that's where we started. We started with everybody getting together and putting out a wish list. That's where it started. Gee,
Right.
it'd be nice to have a big office space with 5 desks in it, this, that, and the other thing. Everybody was involved. Paulette was involved. Lorelei was involved. The shop was all involved. We all sat here and said, gee, this would be nice to have this, this, and this. That's how all of this came together.
What you're
And-
actually
and
looking
like-
at there,
like
that
what
is the
Rob-
needs assessment.
what Rob had asked before, and you said you had a copy of, what did everybody come up with in regards to needs versus wants?
Yeah,
That would
right
be-
here. That, what you were
Well-
emailed is what we
That's
came
what
up with.
Keller came,
No, that's
No.
what we gave to
That's
Keller.
what we
that's
gave
what
them.
you gave to
Yes,
Keller.
that's what we
They
did.
took what we gave them verbally and they put it into a packet so it was
Yeah.
organized. That's not what they came to us with, that's what we went to them at.
Yeah.
That's good
That-
clarification.
And
I'm
that's what
sorry,
they
I
said.
didn't.
The office for the chairman would, okay, how big do we want it? Do we want 2 desks in there, 4 desks in there, that type of thing? And that's how they came up with the information that is in this packet.
And to clarify a little bit, they didn't even ask, okay, we want this office, how big of an office do you need? They asked, how are we gonna use it? How many desks? Do we need file cabinets? Do we need this? And they based it off of, yes, we needed 3 file cabinets, a desk, and a place where somebody can come in and have a little private meeting. That's what they based off, was the needs on those. And that was all based off of just needs alone. It wasn't, we didn't come to them and say, we wanted a 180 square foot office. It was based on the square footage that, as an architect, as a designer, you're gonna need to make a building work.
That's this
And then, after, in Keller's defense, they're just working off of the information that we gave them, and they haven't even come to a conclusion on what's it gonna cost to refurbish the building. That hasn't even really been discussed as far as, getting into the real nuts and bolts of the whole operation. Pretty much everything has been just throwing
Ideas.
the 6 different designs out there. That's pretty much all it's been.
And touring the buildings.
Yeah, touring the buildings, looking at the buildings, but every time we met with them, they had a different idea of how, okay, we can lay this out this way, or we can lay it out this way. Put the buildings together, it has to be constructed this way. Separate the buildings, it can be constructed this way. So that's all the stuff that we've been getting together with.
I appreciate that, because there hasn't been a clear communication of how this has all come about. And where we got from point A to whatever point we're on at this point. I would request, moving forward, regardless if the meetings do move to the evening where more of us can participate, for any of the planning commission that cannot participate, that all materials are forwarded for them to review. So we are all in understanding as we come to a meeting here tonight and we start talking about how we ended up with map number 17,
Right.
that everybody's on board, everybody understands how we got to that point. Because a lot of what I'm hearing tonight is stuff that has not been verbally communicated to everybody. And I think if, the planning commission is supposed to be the one spearheading this, even if we all can't make the meeting, we should all be being informed on what is getting handed out, what is getting passed out, what is getting looked at, considered. And I'm just saying that the flow of communication regarding this whole situation has not been clear. And I would just appreciate moving forward that everybody is looped in with handout scans. I don't care if they're paper copies or if they're just scans of the copies to an email. We can be more knowledgeable of what is being discussed.
We almost need somebody keeping notes, because I can't remember every
Right.
verbally.
Well, and what I was just gonna say is, I believe the document that Adam forwarded to all of us is the first electronic document that we've got from Keller. The rest were hard copies.
What we
correct?
could do though is record those
Yeah.
meetings.
I was gonna say, we could
Good.
record them and just distribute them to the members, not.
Yeah.
Right,
Sure. have it.
That's a brilliant suggestion.
yeah, and to add to that, that was the first document you got was the first electronic document. Anybody that was in attendance of those meetings got hard copies, but
But they can be scanned.
Well,
Yeah.
really, the only thing that we've gotten outside of that is the designs, the physical aerial photographs with the design.
And I would love to see
And
those.
they're
I
just
would love
an
to see where it came
architectural
from.
idea of what
One says
could be
seven.
done
Right.
with a particular idea.
And
Which we're this
personally,
far
I-
into this and we haven't seen those.
Yeah, and
On
I've
that
been
side,
throwing
I
them
agree.
away as we go to the next meeting because I don't want to confuse myself. So I don't know how many I got, but I know I have
And to
some.
be honest, they bring those in and within 10 minutes of the meeting starting, half
They're
the time we're
changed.
throwing that out.
Yes.
Well, and I understand that, but you can generate different ideas off of those. Like, maybe we could look at those and be like, oh, you know what, here's another idea that is a possibility, but we didn't have, I haven't seen any of them.
Yep, I think we're gonna ask for everything historical. And we can get that
That's
retroactively
the
distributed.
first one.
We're gonna,
this is the first one?
And then we'll
We've
just
got this.
record the meeting.
No, this is the latest.
last
Better.
one, yes.
So if you can't make the meeting, then it's
We're-
recorded and you can see it.
this is a long process. I mean, it's not like we're trying to
Yeah.
present this in a couple months or anything. We've
Right.
got a long ways to go. No one needs to feel any pressure. I mean, obviously the town residents' input is warranted and valid at any point in the process, but we know we're not ready to turn around and present it to anybody at this point. We got a lot more questions than answers. So I wouldn't get discouraged by any means. We got
Don't take it as that we're discouraged. There seems to be a lot of information that
We don't have.
we don't have. And there's been a lot of moving forward on ideas that
We don't
personally,
even know
I
how we got
I
there.
don't know how we got there. That's what we're asking right now. And
Should
With the
be
exception
six.
of the last
so-
meeting here, I think I've got all the maps here.
nice work.
Awesome.
If you want, I can make copies real quick.
Well, either that, or if you, for me, I'm fine if you just scan
Go
them
ahead.
to a document.
I don't have any way to scan them, I don't have anything
Or
here, so.
your printer doesn't scan to a
It
document?
does,
If
but
it does,
only
I don't know
for,
how.
Oh.
So, but I can make,
I would like
how many
copies.
copies do I need here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I don't
I
need
think
any.
Dan's got everything.
I
got
have
it.
permission
you
to.
just
They
had
were
two
all wish
options,
lists,
right,
that's
Dan?
for-
I have
for-
permission.
Six different
Six
photo
total
maps,
maps.
but there's really nothing.
We're at option D, but I believe there was two maps on two of the versions.
Yeah, there
Gonna
was
confuse
A, B,
everybody.
All we
I
need
know.
is, are we keeping them?
And to be honest, part of the
Whatever
reason they
way is
didn't
easiest
bring them
is
all
fine.
in was to try to streamline the process.
Right.
Because there were so many things that were thrown out immediately that trying not to confuse those with everything else.
And I do understand that piece, but like you said, we're not understanding how we got to this portion because we didn't see everything that had been presented ahead of time. So I would like to see where it started and where we pared it down to just,
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think seeing those and even seeing them in order, I don't think those are gonna help you.
Right.
Well,
Um, You know, cause you still need to know the questions that were asked, the reasons they were thrown out immediately.
Well,
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think the layouts are gonna be too assistive to you.
the layouts help me because I look in this book, okay, here's, and I studied these, here's the auxiliary room, here's the bathroom, here's the storage units, for the municipal trucks. To see that laid out on a diagram with the measurements is pretty nice compared to trying to picture that. You know, so they are important, whether they're right or not. That is a 50 by 100 building. And that hasn't changed since the beginning, from what I understand. So
One thing I will
laying
put out there
out
about
is-
that
is-
too, the actual shop portion of that is really not that much different than the size of the building we have. The idea is to gain a little extra space with getting parts rooms out of the way, you know, so we're not keeping everything in that storage, but the actual shop area, we're not actually increasing that much in there. There's offices and that are getting added on,
But that's a helpful tool for that. I mean, we can look at numbers and measurements on this book a lot, and but it's still harder to understand than that. So, and as far as the longevity of any repairs we make to this old building, how do you put a time limit on that? I mean, churches last 300 years. I don't, you know, I hope we get a itemized breakdown of what it's gonna cost to have the roof fixed, the heating replaced. If the electrical needs to be updated, that should all be itemized and not just thrown in it's gonna cost, you know, $806,000 to $1.3 million type thing. I think the residents are gonna want a really good breakdown of what this cost versus new is gonna be, and what are the benefits gonna be to the residents. Because I know we've got money coming in, and I know it isn't earmarked, but we're not gonna raise taxes, I believe, for this project.
no.
That's the idea.
But it's still money that we're using,
Still being utilized.
it's still being used.
The-
So, and I think the residents are gonna want it to be used as cost efficiently as they can, and that's our job, I guess.
Right.
So,
And the only other factor I'm gonna say that's part of this is, if we look at the next 30 years, are we ever gonna have a project coming up in that time that will supply us with the money to do something? Or at that point, if that building's not gonna last through that time, at that point, is that gonna mean taxes raised because of that? You know, you gotta look at the future and what we have coming up, because once we earmark that, if we half our road budget because all of a sudden we need to do that,
John.
and people are seeing we're doing half the road work,
And then you
Yeah.
can-
that's gonna become a huge problem. You know, so it's trying to look at what we have now, what we have coming in, and the potential we have in the future. Is all, that needs to be taken into account along with all these concerns.
I have a
Yes.
have a comment. My plan from the very beginning was to have a couple days where townspeople were giving tours of the building. And I was planning personally to take them around and ask some of the board members and plan commission members if they would want to volunteer to do that also. That way the townspeople could see exactly what the buildings are and what we want and what our needs are and potentially what we can do and can't do. I think I am with you, Rob, as far as showing the people what we got and, you know, not just walking in the hall and voting and walking out because they don't realize that, okay, it costs $1,000 a month to heat that building. The block in the basement's crumbling and we're gonna have to tear that addition off anyway. They don't see all that, but I think touring the buildings, they would see that if it was pointed out to them, you know. So I think that's the best way to show people whether we do a remodel, whether we do a build, whether we just leave it as is. The people got to see what options they have. It's not just my building or your building. It's everybody's.
All right, I've got all those. I just got them now.
Oh,
I'll
great.
send them all to all of you.
Thank you. I
Thanks.
appreciate it very
Mhm.
much.
And they do have, on the bottom, you'll notice there's a letter or a number of that drawing. So if you are making notes, reference that drawing
Oh, sure.
because they're very hard to separate.
Got it.
That's why I threw half of mine away. So,
Actually, the first one doesn't have a number, anything on it.
oh, you're right.
Yeah, that's this one
The
here.
first one, and that's pretty much the one
Conceptual.
that we're still looking at, is the first sketch, so to say, that they brought in, as far as layout or anything, but, been pretty much outside of the one that, the newest idea of retaining the existing building for cold storage, but, it seems like we always get back to the first one that was ever shown.
Thank you, guys.
So what I'm getting is we're gonna
The
request
only
that they have
one
numbers for the
on the
remodel
planning
costs
commission that
with
would have a
breakdowns.
copy of all those.
I would like
Patty,
to see
'cause I don't
some
have
numbers,
those.
yeah, with
Email
breakdowns. Absolutely.
That's a good idea.
So
Would you like me to forward it
if
to
you
her in
wanna forward
preparation
it to
for?
her so she comes in, she doesn't come in blind,
I can do that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I agree.
And I do have a request to get her contact information so I can put her on my group for PC, so.
Got it.
All right, so May 1st, 5:30.
5:30.
Got it.
All right. Moving on, item number 8, land division ordinance discussion. The last meeting, Rob, you had in your announcements or information, you had said that we should not forget that. And
Yeah, if we
I
have time.
agree, and,
If we have time, that's, if not,
no, you got 4 minutes, go ahead.
why me?
Give them 5.
I just,
No, 4.
I
It's gonna
just,
take 6.
no, I just brought it up the last meeting
Yep.
because we have some business. I don't think we've ever discussed or finished with that, so.
Great. No, and I don't want it to sit on the back burner forever, so that's why it's on the agenda for today.
Okay, so I don't know where we wanna go with this. I don't think it's in a form of a, and I'm not gonna say I don't think, but I don't think it's in the form of an ordinance. But we might have to shore up some of our language on what we do have. We do have, when we did the ordinance package, the last 3 years, we went through all the lot sizes changes, all the frontage changes. All of that was for a reason. We got through all of that. We had a driveway ordinance in place, and part of the reason for some of this stuff that we were doing because of the CSMs we were getting were very strange. Lots of flag lots, lots of parcels behind parcels with long skinny driveways going back to them. So the history behind all of this is that we had a lot of strange parcels getting thrown at us, and I've got, if anybody wants to talk afterwards, I've got them here. All the old CSMs that we've had trouble with, not trouble, but stuff that's came into us, and then we didn't really have a clear-cut answer to how are we gonna do it. How are we gonna do 4 flag lots together on a 10-acre parcel? It ends up being an easement connecting the 4, which we had nothing in our books explaining easements or whether we're gonna allow easement as access to connecting driveways to get to different parcels. We don't have that on the books. I know the county does now.
We can't, if the county doesn't allow an easement, we cannot allow an easement. We have to get it through the county first. And Emily, with the new planning and zoning administrator there, Emily, she does not allow easements any longer where previous people who interpreted the county zoning did. So I think that's kind of a moot point. So I would agree with you, Rob. To access back part of a 40, it's almost going to have to be very narrow lots, or they're gonna have to put it in their own road and dedicate it to the town. I don't know
Which-
how, any other way around that.
Which we, and this stuff is old. This is, I don't know,
Right.
when we discussed
That's over a
this.
year
I
ago.
remember
year and a
that.
half
I'm
ago,
not
but-
familiar with any of that discussion.
What
and
we came up
I guess
with.
I've been here years.
They can hand this down to, but that was one way that they drew up a easy way to split apart a 40 up, because you were discussing earlier that you've had interest on some bigger parcels being developed, and the developer wanted to know what the town
Right.
needed or whatever, but as you look at that, Adam, you could split that 40 up into 12, 15, 18 different parcels, but at least they have a public road right-of-way access, not an easement going back. So-
We had a problem with that though, Rob. Remember, we didn't have the 75 foot of frontage because of that cul-de-sac? So that was.
With some of
that's
those, right,
still-
Dan? You
yeah,
brought that
was
up.
the- Dan
That's what I
actually,
always said.
Yeah.
How are you gonna get 75 foot of frontage
We-
with 3 lots on a
right,
cul-de-sac? There's
I
no
remember
way.
You
that.
won't,
I mean,
you won't,
the,
so,
when you go back to 336 in the statutes, they have a minimum lot average width. and it's an average width. It's not a frontage width, it's an average width. So you got 75 feet in the front, you got 380 in the back. You've got plenty of room.
And where we come up with the 75, I believe, was when we started getting these.
Well, you came up with a
Long, skinny-
75 with people that didn't have a clue what they were talking about.
Yeah. Well, I
Just
think
to be honest.
it was for access to these back lots so that the driveways weren't so close to each other, and we all discussed it, I believe. But that's a good point, and I think that's something we have to iron out, is if we happen to go that route with a developer, let's say a developer comes in and wants to split that 40 up along Highway 13, and he wants to put in a development. And are we gonna follow the county's rule that he's not gonna be able to put an easement in and run parcels off of that? And if,
Well, you just said two different things though. So we're talking about splitting 40 into separate parcels, and then you were talking about a development.
well, they're separate. But,
Yes.
but if someone came in with that idea of parceling off of 40 into several parcels, smaller parcels, if it's over 5, then the state and the county take over that. But the access question, I mean, I'm still go back to the parcel that we have a 284-foot easement going back to a private road.
Yeah.
And that's being parceled off into separate parcels. Is that gonna reciprocate to the next developer? Is that how we're gonna do those? And if so, we need to put that in writing so that moving forward, everybody who
Treated
enters
the
the
same.
building understands that this is the process. Because right now it isn't. In our ordinance, it just says 75 foot of frontage. It doesn't even say road right-of-way frontage. It just says 75 foot of frontage.
On a public road, right?
No, I just looked it up today. If you go, like RR1, it just says it states lot frontage width of 75 feet. All of our zoning districts, it just says lot size frontage. Doesn't say that anything about having to be on a road right away.
It does somewhere in our zoning. We went through this already.
So you can't landlock a piece of land.
I remember we went through that, Rob.
Okay.
I remember we have it in here somewhere. It was
Page 24.
defined. I think it was in our definition, under frontage, yes.
She's got, page 24.
It says frontage, the boundary of a lot which is along an existing or dedicated public right-of-way such as a street or where no public street exists is along another public
Okay.
way.
So when I looked it up in here as a layman, which if
No.
someone did, they would say, well, frontage, that just means frontage. And does that mean we can go off of easement? Can we
No,
use
I
easements to
actually-
connect driveways moving
I've been
forward?
intercepting phone calls just this week on that. I'm glad you asked that. So maybe we do have to get a little more specific in our
On our
actual
chart.
districts. Instead of just being as a definition in our definitions, maybe we have to bring it forward and put it
It would-
actually in the district.
It wouldn't hurt anything if it was there right
Okay.
in the front, I don't believe. But as far as the easements and the road right-of-way access and stuff, I think it's gonna come in here, and we're debating it as they come in the door, and I think we should have the answers before the developers come in.
You know, actually, I'm looking here, Rob, it does say in rural residential 1, it does say 75 feet minimum on street. But it does not say that on RS1, so maybe I need to put that on RS1 too.
Page 24 up.